Jamie.
Welcome to First Parish in Needham, a Unitarian Universalist congregation of humanists, theists, atheists, agnostics, spiritual seekers, and interfaith families. We are a proud LGBTQ plus welcoming congregation, climate justice seeking green sanctuary, level 2 sanctuary supporting congregation for immigration justice, and an 8th principle congregation striving to dismantle racism and other oppressions and to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community. Whoever you are, whatever your background and wherever you're participating from, you are welcome here. I'm Vicki McCready's.
And I'm Marianne McGowan.
And together we co-chair the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee at First Parish. Today, from 3 until 5 o'clock in Parish Hall, we are hosting a special event celebrating Poetry Month. National Poetry Month, and we're very excited to have an acclaimed Boston poet, teacher, and singer, Charles Coe, join us for the second year, this time in person, and he will share from his latest works, including a very recently released book, Purgatory Road, and he's going to give us an a cappella performance and lead us in a short prompted workshop so we can explore our own poetry writing. The event is also live streamed to our YouTube channel, and so those who can't attend in person can also enjoy the event. So I just want to encourage you to join us. There will be a reception and book signing afterwards, and it should be a very inspiring, fun way to celebrate National Poetry Month.
So just to say a few words about the DEI committee. We strive to support an equitable and inclusive community here at First Parish and to connect with the larger community in promoting social justice both locally and beyond. We are guided by our 8th principal covenant. Please join us. DEI meets on the 3rd Monday of the month on Zoom at 1:30 p.m. And we hope to have a page on the First Parish website active very soon, so you can check us out there at uuneedham.org. And in the meantime, you can reach us by email at dei@uuneedham.org. Our congregation is offering worship and programming with in-person, hybrid, and online gatherings. You can learn more about all that's happening at First Parish by going to the website, uuneedham.org, or by following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Our order of service is online too, at the QR code in your pews and at the website uuneedham.updates.church. For all Zoom links and the most up-to-date information, please sign up for our weekly email newsletter by going to our website and clicking Get Involved Newsletter, or sending your request to office@uuneedham.org. Welcome again to everyone here in the building and online, and good morning.
As we light our chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, we read responsively words from 20th century English Canadian UU minister, Reverend Dr. Philip Hewitt. The words are in your orders of service with updated gender-neutral language. I'll read the plain type, and you'll read the italicized type with Dara. From the fragmented world of our everyday lives, we gather together in search of wholeness.
By many cares and preoccupations, by diverse and selfish aims, we are separated from one another and divided within ourselves.
Yet we know that no branch is utterly severed from the tree of life that sustains us all.
We cherish our oneness with those around us and the countless generations that have gone before.
We would hold fast to all of good we inherit, even as we leave behind us the outworn and the false.
We would escape from bondage to the ideas of our own day and from the delusions of our own fancy.
Let us labor in hope for the dawning of a new day without hatred, violence, and injustice.
Let us nurture the growth in our own lives of the love that has shone in the lives of the greatest of all people, the rays of whose lamps still illumine our way.
In this spirit we gather, in this spirit we pray. Our opening hymn, I Wish I Knew How, is a gospel jazz song written by 20th century African-American composers Dick Dallas and Billy Taylor, and its most popular version was sung by African-American activist and singer-songwriter Nina Simone. Please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing I Wish I Knew How. The lyrics are in your orders of service and at number 151 in the gray hymnals.
All the
In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the covenant is a set of promises the membership of a congregation strives to honor with one another and out in the world. Whether we participate in our community online or in person, we strive to live these promises every day. Please say along with us the words of our parish covenant, as in your orders of service. We gather as a loving community to encourage and comfort one another. We gather as a diverse community to support each other in our search for spiritual truth. We gather as a service community to live our beliefs through action and care for our world.
Good morning. It is so wonderful to see you all. I'm always excited to do the Time for All Ages, but I will admit to being especially excited today because I'm going to be talking about one of my childhood favorite books. Today, we are talking about the idea of toxic masculinity. In our world, we like to think that things can be clearly and easily categorized. These things are masculine, these things are feminine. To be masculine is to be strong, to be feminine is to be soft. But it's important to also remember that toxic masculinity is very distinct from masculinity. Because we know that softness doesn't mean weakness, just like strength doesn't mean violence or cruelty. We can show strength through the way that we live peaceful lives. We can show softness in the way that we stand up for those who we know are not being respected. This idea is often found in many stories, but in particular, a classic story that has been around for about 85 years, written in 1930s Spain by Monroe Leaf, the story of Ferdinand. Monroe Leaf wrote this story for his friend Robert Lawson, who was an artist. He wanted Robert to have something to draw pictures of. And so I'm going to tell you the story of Ferdinand. Just in the countryside outside of Madrid, Spain, there was a group of cattle, cows and bulls. There were a group of young bulls there that liked to play, fight, and wrestle. It was just the way young bulls were in that area. But Ferdinand, another young bull, was different. He just wanted to smell the flowers, his favorite thing to do. While the other bulls dreamed of being tough and strong enough to be chosen for the violent bullfights in Madrid, where they would fight bravely against humans with dangerous weapons, Ferdinand had no interest. Even as he grew huge, bigger than all the other bulls, bigger and tougher, the perfect bull for a bullfight, he still just had no interest. He just wanted to sit under his favorite tree and smell the flowers. But then one day, he went to sit under his favorite tree, and there was a bee sitting on a flower. Not seeing it, he sat down, and immediately, the bee stung him. I don't know how you all feel, but when I am in pain, I am a yeller, I'm a screamer, I'm a runner. Ferdinand was the same. Upon getting stung, he ran all across the field, huffing and puffing. There was a man there who was scouting out the next big bull for the bullfight. And when he saw Ferdinand running around the field, he went, "That is a big, mean bull." So he loaded Ferdinand into the cart and took him into Madrid. He took him to the massive arena, put him right in the middle with the people screaming, ready for violence. as their entertainment. Men showed up with weapons and their regalia ready to fight. So they came, they began to taunt him and terrorize him. But Ferdinand did nothing. Ferdinand didn't fight back, didn't engage. He kind of just didn't know what to do. This isn't what Ferdinand wanted. This isn't what Ferdinand found to be joyful and fun, unlike, it would seem, the bloodthirsty people all around him. But as Ferdinand didn't engage, the crowd realized this was not much fun. To watch the big and powerful pick on a being wanting so desperately to be peaceful. So they gave up, put Ferdinand in the cart, and carted him back to the countryside. They took him back to his home where Ferdinand sat under his favorite tree to smell the flowers once more. It's a beautiful story about being in yourself in the only way you know how to be. It's a story about how masculinity can be gentle and loving just as much as it can be big and tough. But it's also not just a story. This story is in fact inspired by a real bull from 1930s Spain named Civilian. Farmer Don Juan Coboleda found his 7-year-old daughter Carmelita petting his largest bull out in the field. It was Civilian, his biggest, strongest bull that he was raising as a Toro Brava for bullfighting. And this bull was eating flowers from his 7-year-old's hand. The other children in the area would come and feed him flowers. There were some small stories in newspapers. And then, as people became restless with the upcoming Spanish Civil War, they decided it would be fun, actually, to have this famous pacifist bull go into bullfighting. Maybe that would actually add to the entertainment, to have a bull that didn't want to fight back. So they took him to Barcelona to fight, and as the humans attacked him, he certainly reacted as any animal would, defending himself, not completely peaceful. But then the farmer, Don Juan, called across to him from the arena, and Civilian came up to him and leaned in to be pet. Even this violent, horrible situation that he had just been thrust into with no understanding, there was still room in him for kindness and softness and love. There is a custom where the audience in the arena can actually ask for the bull to be saved. Nobility, nobleza. When bulls display this, an indulto, an indulgence to be spared. And so he was. The real Ferdinand was spared, taken back to his field. There was a big magazine article that came out with a picture, and the article read, "The women saved him." After this time, the Spanish Civil War came. The book was banned. Burned by Hitler, banned by Franco in Italy, because it was a story of pacifism. It was a story of standing up, fighting back, being who you are in the face of great violence and injustice. And that's a threat. We see it in our own lives now. Books being banned because other people simply can't take the idea that people can love themselves and be different than others. This story from 1930s Spain is just as relevant now as it ever was. Monroe Leaf was quoted as saying, "I thought this book was for children, but now I don't know." We get to decide what we want our strength to look like and what we want our legacy to be. Are we going to be the matadors in the bullfighting arena, or are we going to be Civilian and Ferdinand? We get to be strong, however we choose. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah Elizabeth. As our children follow Sarah Elizabeth and their teachers to their religious exploration opportunities, please join in singing Longtime Son as printed in your orders of service.
May the longtime sun shine upon you. All love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. May the longtime sun shine upon you. All love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on.
There we go. Now is the time in our service where we lift up the joys and sorrows that lie close to our hearts. If you can't be in the sanctuary, but you would like your joy or sorrow shared during the service, please email me at candles@uuneedham.org by the Friday before the service, and we'll include it during this portion of our service. We have 2 staff candles. The first is a candle of gratitude for last week's To the Fore concert. It was organized by our beloved Laura Nevitt. The music was sublime, and it was a holy experience to sit with all of you who were there and listen to the music. The second candle is one that recognizes what's happening on Tuesday, and it is a candle of sorrow that our trust in government is further eroded, and we are at the place where a former president is being indicted, and a bit of gratitude that the rule of law is in place. We light 2 candles. And now, if you have a joy or sorrow to share, I invite you to come up and speak into the microphone. If you're joining us online, please type your joy or sorrow into the chat box.
Hello, my name is Ross Donald, and I live at Precinct D. If you're a voter, the reason I'm here is to, of course, ask something from you. My name is on the ballot, and I was a town meeting member before, and I kind of gave it up, and I decided I shouldn't do that. And anyway, my joys are to be here. I'm happy being here, in person, and to hear the singing and the words. My concerns are this election coming up, and my concerns are housing, public information, and community, which I define as people getting together to have a good time. And this is what we're doing here. It might be work, but this is what community means to me, or one example. Okay, so I'm asking you to vote. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christy. I'm here to light a candle of concern for a dear family friend, Margaret McLaughlin. She had a heart attack last month and is scheduled for bypass surgery this week.
For these prayers spoken aloud, and for all those that remain silent on our hearts, we light a final candle. And this morning's prayer was inspired by one written by Wesley King, who is the Director of Music Ministries at UU Nashville, First UU Nashville, on the day following the Covenant School shooting. So I invite you to settle into your pew. Place your feet on the ground if that's comfortable for you. Ground yourself in this moment. Breathe in and out. Please join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. God of love and compassion, hear our prayer as we grieve the loss of life from the tragic shooting at Covenant School near Nashville, Tennessee. We are so numb to this pain that our reactions to this tragedy feel rehearsed. God, change our numbness into feeling. We live in a nation in which the number one killer of children is guns. And children who survive mass shootings learn that they could just die at any minute. And parents ask, how many more must die before we put our children's lives above the current interpretation of the right to bear arms? God, turn our despair and fear into bravery and encouragement for change. People throughout our country live in states where they protect kids from drag shows and from books that have somehow been deemed inappropriate, but are not protected from assault weapons. God, turn our frustration into action. We are overwhelmed by grief and hopelessness at our inability to create a safe world for our children. God, hear our prayers for peace. We live hectic lives with overly full to-do lists that often distract us from telling our family and friends how deeply we love them. God, hear our prayers for love. We pray that voices and organizations take action to end gun violence, that they be amplified, that we may hear new ways to get involved and to take action. God, hear our prayer for justice. And finally, we pray for each other as we try to make sense of another mass shooting and more lives lost to senseless gun violence. God, hear our prayers for ourselves and our neighbors. May it be so, and amen. Please remain seated and join in singing our meditative response. I know this rose will open. We'll sing it 3 times through. The lyrics are in your orders of service and at number 396 in your gray hymnals.
This congregation has been supported by the volunteered time and treasure of its members and friends since its founding in 1711. This is the time in our service when we, the modern stewards of the church, offer what we can to build and sustain the congregation and the world we envision. For the month of April, we'll be sharing our collection 50/50 with the Needham Community Farm. The Needham Community Farm is a nonprofit right here in town that educates people about sustainable growing, helps volunteers get back in touch with the earth and with each other, and supplies fresh seasonal produce to the Needham Community Council Food Pantry and Needham Housing Authority sites. To donate to our collection, you can use one of 3 different methods as described in your orders of service. And whatever way you give, please be sure to specify whether your gift is for the Sunday collection or for your annual pledge commitment. Thank you for all your support for First Parish and our community partners. And many thanks to Susan Condon for the beautiful flowers today in loving memory of her husband, Greg. May the ushers now please come forward.
Gosh, it disturbs me to see you, Gaston, looking so down in the dumps. Every guide here like to be you, Gaston, even when taking your lumps. There's no man in town as admired as you. You're everyone's favorite guy. Everyone's awed and inspired by you, and it's not very hard to see why. No one's quick as Gaston. No one's neck's as incredibly thick as Gaston. There's no man in town half as manly. Perfect, a pure paragon. You can ask any Tom, Dick, or Stanley, and they'll tell you whose team they prefer to play on. No one's been like Gaston, a kingpin like Gaston. No one's got a swell cleft in his chin like Gaston. As a specimen, yes, he's intimidating. My, what a guy, that Gaston. Give 5 hurrahs, give 12 hip hips. Gaston is the best, and the rest is all tricks. No one fights like Gaston, douses lights like Gaston. In a wrestling match, nobody bites like Gaston, for there's no one as burly and brawny. As you see, he's got biceps to spare, not a bit of him scraggly or scrawny, and every last inch of him's covered with hair. No one hits like Gaston, matches wits like Gaston. In a spitting match, nobody spits like Gaston. He's especially good at expectorating. 10 points for Gaston. When he was a lad, he ate 4 dozen eggs every morning to help him get large. And now that he's grown, he eats 5 dozen eggs, so he's roughly the size of a barge. No one shoots like Gaston, makes those buttes like Gaston, then goes strumming around in his boots like Gaston. He has antlers in all of his decorating. My, what a guy.
Our reading this morning is a slam poetry offering from multiracial hip-hop artist and educator Kyle Tran Myrie, whose stage name is Guante. This is his poem, 10 Responses to the Phrase, Man Up.
10 responses to the phrase, man up. 1, I know what you're trying to say, right? I know that man up means to do the difficult thing in the face of hardship, to take responsibility, as if women never face hardship, as if non-binary people never faced hardship, as if the people in my life who taught me how to take responsibility were ever men. 2, you want to question my masculinity, like a schoolyard circle of curses fine. Just remember, not every problem can be solved by growing a pair. You cannot arm wrestle your way out of depression. The CEO of the company that just laid you off does not care how much you bench, and I promise there is no light beer in the universe full-bodied enough to make you love yourself. 3, man up. Okay, that's that new superhero, right? Like mild-mannered supplement salesman Mark Manstrong says the magic words man up and then transforms into the 5 o'clock shadow. The massively muscled, deep-voiced leather duster wearing Superman who defends the world from, I don't know, feelings. 4, of course. Why fight to remove our chains when we can simply compare their lengths? Why step outside the box when the box has these awesome flame decals on it? We men are cigarettes, dangerous and poisonous and mass-produced. 5, you ever notice how nobody ever says woman up? Like, they might imply it, but it's not like a thing that people say. And I think maybe that's because women and the women's movement figured out a long time ago that being directly, explicitly ordered around by commercials, magazines, music, and media is dehumanizing. And when will men figure that out? 6, the phrase man up suggests that competence and perseverance, both generally good things, are also uniquely masculine. That women, not to mention non-binary people, not to mention any man who doesn't, eat steak and drive a big truck and have lots of sex with women, are nothing. More than anything, though, it suggests that to be yourself, whether you whatever, rock a little eyeliner or wear skinny jeans or drink some other brand of light beer or write poetry, will cost you. 7, and how many boys have to kill themselves before this country acknowledges the problem? How many women have to be assaulted? How many trans people have to be murdered? We teach boys how to wear the skin of a man, but we also teach them how to raise that skin like a flag and draw blood for it. 8, boy babies get blue socks and girl babies get pink socks. And what about green? What about orange? What about cerulean, black, tie-dyed, buffalo plaid? 9, I want to be free to express myself. Man up. I want to have meaningful emotional relationships with my brothers. Man up. I want to be weak sometimes. Man up. I want to be strong in a way that isn't about physical power or dominance. Man up. I want to talk to my father about something other than sports. Man up. I want to be who I am. Man up. 10. No. Cool.
This is a sermon rooted both in societal patterns and in personal stories, mine and others, and I did get permission to tell this one. Major League Baseball, the season just had its succession of opening days, go Sox. And I remember one time that Cole and I had great seats at Fenway along the first base line. This was the first time we had sat in foul ball territory, and Cole was hopeful. Maybe he, with his many years of pitching and catching in high school, college, and in a local adult fast pitch league, maybe he would catch a game ball. You may know where this is going. Yes, a foul ball was hit directly at us. I reacted with panicked self-preservation. But Cole had his hands up, carefully prepared to catch this incredibly fast-moving baseball. And he would have if the guy sitting next to us hadn't reached out his hand to try to catch the ball, too. Neither of them caught the ball. It ricocheted off the other man's hand into Cole's fingers sideways and then bounced far off into the next section. The other man's girlfriend and I looked at each other with grave concern. A Fenway employee came over to us and with an air of standard procedure, asked the guys if their hands were okay and if he could get them ice packs. First, the other man refused, and then Cole refused too. The employee offered again, and the offer was again declined. The girlfriend and I now looked at each other, not with concern, but with deep annoyance. A few minutes later, while cradling his hand, Cole said quietly to me, "I should have taken the ice pack." Green Hills Addiction Recovery Center offers a succinct summary of the traits of toxic or unhealthy masculinity. Unconditional physical toughness, physical aggression, fear of weak or vulnerable emotions, discrimination against people who aren't heterosexual, hyper-independence, sexual aggression or violence, and anti-feminist behavior. I should say now that this is not a sermon about how there's something inherently wrong with masculinity or maleness or men. It's alarming and dehumanizing that these acceptable traits for boys and men within toxic masculinity are immature, emotionally detached, and cruel. This is a sermon about how rigid gender norms, whether expressed as toxic masculinity or trad wives or non-binary oppression and erasure, these rigid gender norms hurt all of us, no matter our gender. Rigid gender norms deny us access to our authentic selves and the healthy fulfillment of our own individual and communal needs. Think about my husband and our neighbor at Fenway Park. Succumbing to toxic masculinity culture, they showed physical and emotional toughness and their independence. No, sir, I don't need an ice pack. They did. They needed an ice pack. 20th century black gay writer James Baldwin wrote, "The American ideal of masculinity is an ideal so paralytically infantile that it is virtually forbidden as an unpatriotic act that the American boy evolve into the complexity of manhood." Or as local Euro-American comedian Bill Burr said of the straight man box, "It's literally just suppressing the urge to like carve a pumpkin, hug a puppy, admit a baby's cute, say you want a cookie. I've got to hold on to that, all slowly dying inside." So while our story from Fenway is meant to be as much amusing as it is illustrative, toxic masculinity causes real psychological, spiritual, and physical damage to people of all genders. From Green Hills Recovery Center again, the impacts of toxic masculinity are far-reaching. It can lead to more violence against women as men may feel entitled or validated in their abusive behavior. Men who display traits of toxic masculinity are more likely to experience isolation, poor health, and unhappiness. And boys who cannot healthily express their emotions are more likely to participate in bullying, physical assault, and verbally aggressive behavior. The social impacts of toxic masculinity are evident when examining rates of violence, drug-related crime, antisocial behaviors, drug overdoses, and suicides. In any cultural system designed to oppress, whether patriarchy, heterosexism, racism, colonialism, classism, ableism, every person in the system is harmed, whether privileged or marginalized. Here's our next story from 20th century Black Buddhist author, educator, and cultural critic, Dr. Bell Hooks. I warn you, it includes a description of physical and psychological violence against children. In Bell Hooks' household growing up, I was taught it was my role to serve, to be weak, to be fear of the burden of thinking, to caretake and to nurture others. My brother was taught it was his role to be served, to provide, to be strong, to think, strategize, and plan, and to refuse to caretake or nurture others. I was taught that it was not proper for a female to be violent, that it was unnatural. My brother was taught that his value would be determined by his will to do and his enjoyment of violence, albeit in appropriate settings. He was taught that a boy should not express feelings, and I was taught that girls could and should express feelings, or at least some of them, never rage. My brother and I remember our confusion about gender. In reality, I was stronger and more violent than my brother, which we learned quickly was bad. And he was a gentle, peaceful boy, which we learned was really bad. Although we were often confused, we knew one fact for certain. We could not be and act the way we wanted to, doing what we felt like. It was clear to us our behavior had to follow a predetermined gendered script. She continues, I was always more interested in challenging patriarchy than my brother because it was the system that was always leaving me out of things that I wanted to be a part of. In our family life in the 50s, marbles were a boys' game. My brother had inherited his marbles from men in the family. He had a tin box to keep them in, all sizes and shapes, marvelously colored. They were, to my eye, the most beautiful objects. We played together with them, often with me aggressively clinging to the marble I liked best, refusing to share. Dad, looking at our play from a patriarchal perspective, was disturbed by what he saw. His daughter, aggressive and competitive, was a better player than his son. His son was passive. The boy did not really seem to care who won and was willing to give over marbles on demand. Dad decided that this play had to end, that both my brother and I needed a lesson about appropriate gender roles. One evening, my brother was given permission by Dad to bring out the tin of marbles. I announced my desire to play and was told by my brother that girls did not play with marbles, that it was a boys' game. This made no sense to my 4- or 5-year-old mind, and I insisted on my right to play by picking up the marbles and shooting them. Dad intervened to tell me to stop, and I did not listen. His voice grew louder and louder. And then suddenly he snatched me up, broke a board from our screen door, and began to beat me with it. Later, Mama came into the bedroom to soothe the pain, telling me in her sweet Southern voice, I tried to warn you. You need to accept that you are just a little girl, and girls can't do what boys do. Bell Hooks concludes, there is nothing unique or even exceptional about this experience. Listen to the voices of wounded, grown children raised in patriarchal homes, and you will hear different versions with the same underlying theme. The use of violence to reinforce our indoctrination and acceptance of patriarchy. I am confident that here today there are people of all genders who hear Bell Hooks' story and recognize this tragedy, wherein even the youngest of children are berated and abused for being their own selves, the only self they can authentically be. Even if a person grew up or is growing up in a family that consciously attempts to refute and dismantle toxic masculinity and rigid gender norms, it's very easy for men and boys to get caught up in some of the worst of toxic masculinity. Sometimes called the manosphere, there's an online network of men and occasionally anti-feminist women who encourage toxic masculinity, misogyny, and heterosexism. It's basically the bar from Beauty and the Beast, praising Gaston. They often borrow a metaphor from the Matrix film series, wherein the characters who disconnect from the Matrix machine take the red pill to enter the real world. The manosphere tells boys and men to take the red pill to see that our society is not actually misogynistic and heterosexist, but in fact is misandrist and anti-heterosexual. One major irony, you may know this, one major irony here, of course, is that the siblings who created the Matrix franchise are both trans women and have said that the Matrix and the red pill are allegories for heterosexist society and coming out as your true self. The progress our culture has made in women's rights and LGBTQ equality is threatening to toxic masculinity and to all people whose power is built on the precarious ground of patriarchy. The manosphere, anti-trans legislation, anti-abortion legislation, and campaigns against affirmative action and equal opportunity employment are all deadly backlash against freedom, fairness, and bodily autonomy for all people, not just for the privileged. How do we continue to push forward? How do we uproot toxic masculinity and encourage non-toxic masculinity in ourselves, in others, in our communities? Let's return to the work of Green Hills for a moment. They write, healthy or positive masculinity is not sexist. It does not discriminate against people that identify as a different gender or sexuality than the male, nor does it have an aversion to acknowledging emotions and vulnerability. Healthy or positive masculinity is the idea that men can be emotionally expressive, have female and queer friends and mentors, and express their emotions without feeling emasculated. Men who are more connected with their emotions will experience increased life satisfaction and self-esteem and decreased rates of mental health problems. I think of Mr. Rogers and Steve Rogers. I think of Ferdinand and the Fab Five and the Fellowship of the Ring. I think of Gomez Adams and Benjamin Sisko. We have role models out there. I also think of Korean-American swimmer, educator, and trans activist Skylar Baylor. He recently released his list of how to fight toxic masculinity and misogyny. Let boys express all their emotions. Let boys wear whatever. Let boys be feminine and refrain from delineating every personality trait as manly or womanly. And let boys and men be affectionate with each other. Baylor ended his list with a reminder that boys will be how we teach them to be, and that rejecting toxic masculinity is not rejecting all masculinity, only the toxicity that is literally killing people. It seems so basic. How under this toxic culture of rigid gender norms we can all become our authentic, healthy selves. How we become whole again, no matter our gender. Emotional expression, acceptance of interests and style, affection without shame. It seems doable, doesn't it? Our last story, from Euro-American Methodist minister and writer, Reverend Jenny Smith. My 7-year-old son said, "I hate being the smallest one in the family." His eyes welled up with tears. I had a choice in that heartbreaking moment. I could launch into a litany of reasons being the smallest was fun and okay, or why he must have misunderstood something. But I took a deep breath and looked at him, really looked at him. I echoed his statement. "You hate being the smallest one in the family." "That must be really hard," I said. He nodded and tears trickled down his cheeks. That moment felt like holy ground. In not rushing to explain, justify, or fix, I was given a moment we so often miss. His pain existed out in the open. He felt his hurt, his anger, he felt seen and validated. The emotion rose up within him, was acknowledged, and then passed. A few minutes later, he grinned about something and ran off to play. Reverend Jenny wrote, "I don't want him to bypass those big feelings, especially as he gets older and moves into a world of toxic masculinity that screams at him to shove the feelings away." Euro-American UU educator, author, and activist Chris Crass has built a lay ministry around helping white people become anti-racist allies and helping men become feminist and LGBTQ allies. I'll let him have the last word, and again, while he's speaking directly to his fellow cis straight men, we all can be inspired. Let us bring out the best of who we are. Acknowledge and work on the worst of who we are, join with others, and learn and grow and come alive in the fullness of our humanity and become feminists who can help heal and transform this world. May this be so. Blessed be, and amen.
Feel free to sing along if you would like to with this song.
I just want to acknowledge how beautiful the music has been this morning, and I want to offer gratitude for Chris, who stepped in at the last moment when Harold was sick and couldn't come in. Thank you so much. So, as always, we have some announcements, and I'm going to just acknowledge that we have a good problem, which is there are a lot of them, so I'll try to get through them quickly. We have our fellowship hour that you're all invited to. Please join us in the fellowship hall after the service. If you're online, please log into the Zoom room and join the online fellowship, please. Caregiver support group is today at 12:30. Pledge drive update, we are at roughly $307,000. Thank you so much to everyone who has pledged. Yeah, that's really great. For those of you who haven't, don't worry, you still have time. Check the bell notes for the link. As we heard at the start of the service, we're having a celebration of Poetry Month with Mr. Coe, Charles Coe, who's coming to read his own poetry and guide us in exploring our own inner poet. Strategic listening session is today at 5 p.m. It's part of the Strategic Task Force Listening to Our Stories project that they're gathering information about what we love about First Parish. So please plan on joining them. There'll be another one on Wednesday. Tomorrow afternoon, Sarah Elizabeth is having another installation of her Ready for a Little Change, a children's book club for adults from 5:30 to 7. Children are, of course, also welcomed at that event. Thursday, we're going to have a Maundy Thursday service. This is Holy Week, and we are acknowledging that Maundy Thursday is happening. It will be at the same time as our Vespers, so please join us as we explore a UU take on this service. And finally, a reminder of our regular weekly events. There are writing escapes and meditation ministries on Thursday, creative escapes on Friday, and see the bell notes, please, for all the details. And now, as we do every week, as we extinguish our chalice, please join me from home and here in the building in saying together the words written by Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Elizabeth Sally Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, nor the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing hymn, Building a New Way, was written by Martha Sandifer, a vocalist and percussionist who draws inspiration from folk music around the world. For our hymnal, this song was arranged by Unitarian Universalist musician Jim Scott. Please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing Building a New Way. The lyrics are in your orders of service at 1017 in your teal hymnals.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can love that is a seed. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry.
As we close our service today, take these words adapted from Jewish American feminist, artist, and educator Judy Chicago with you as a benediction. And then all that has divided us will merge, and then compassion will be wedded to power, and then softness will come to a world that is harsh and unkind. And then both men and women will be gentle, and then both women and men will be strong. And then both genderqueer and non-binary folks will be celebrated and safe. And then no person will be subject to another's will, and then all will be rich and free and varied, and then the greed of some will give way to the needs of many, and then all will share equally in the earth's abundance, and then all will care for the sick and the weak and the old, and then all will nourish the young, and then all will cherish life's creatures, and then all will live in harmony with one another and the earth. And then everywhere will be called Eden once again. Our service begins when our service ends. Blessed be, and amen.